A tiny girl brings home a dying horse from the auction block. Nobody believed she could save him, but when they stepped into the spotlight together, the crowd fell silent, then erupted in disbelief. What happened next would change their lives forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Sarah Coleman gripped the wooden fence post, her small fingers tracing the weathered grooves as she watched the auction unfold before her. At just 11 years old, she was the youngest person at the Montana Valley Horse Auction by far. The autumn wind whipped her auburn braids as she stood on tiptoe, straining to see over the crowd of cowboy hats and broad shoulders. "Stay close. A pumpkin," her mother Jennifer called from nearby, where she chatted with other local ranchers. Sarah barely heard her, too focused on the parade of gleaming horses being led through the auction ring, their coats shimmered like polished copper, and midnight silk under the late afternoon sun. But Sarah wasn't interested in the prize stallions or champion mares. Her gaze kept drifting to the back pens, where the discount horses waited their turn. The ones nobody wanted. The ones destined for the meat trucks if they didn't sell today. That's where she first saw him. The skeletal bay gelding stood alone in the corner, head hanging low, ribs sharp enough to cast shadows. His dull coat was patched with rain rot, and old scars crisscrossed his flanks like faded lightning. But something in his eyes caught Sarah's attention, a flicker of spirit not quite extinguished. "Look at that one, Mama," Sarah whispered, tugging her mother's sleeve. "He needs help." Jennifer glanced where Sarah pointed and frowned. "Oh, honey, that poor creature's not long for this world. Sometimes the kindest thing is to let them go." But Sarah couldn't look away. The horse lifted his head slightly, ears swiveling toward her voice. Their eyes met through the fence slats. "That's storm warning," a gruff voice said behind them. Sarah turned to see Mr. Anderson, who ran the auction house. Been trying to sell him for weeks. Previous owner worked him near to death in the rodeo circuit, then dumped him here when he broke down. Won't even fetch meat prices now. "Storm warning," Sarah repeated softly, a name that spoke of power and wildness, though the horse before her seemed to have forgotten both. The day wore on, and Sarah watched horse after horse parade through the ring. Finally, Storm Warning's turn came. The handlers had to practically drag him forward, his hooves scraping weakly against the dirt. "Next up, lot number 47, the auctioneer called, his voice flat with disinterest. "Storm warning, 9-year-old bay gelding, some racing history, as is where is. Do I hear $50? The crowd was silent. Someone coughed. A few people shuffled their boots in the dust. "Folks, I've got trucks heading to the processing plant tomorrow. This is your last chance. $40? 30? Sarah's hand shot up before she could stop herself. "I have $28.43. The crowd turned to stare. Someone snickered. Sarah felt her cheeks burn, but kept her, arm raised high. "Sarah," her mother hissed, "put your hand down right now." The auctioneer peered down at her, bemused. "Little lady, this isn't a petting zoo. This horse needs serious care and rehabilitation. He's dangerous in his current state." "I've been saving since January," Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. "From mowing lawns and helping at the clinic. I know it's not much, but I can help. Him, please." "Sarah Jane Coleman," her mother's voice cracked like a whip. "We are not buying a half-dead horse. I forbid it." Sarah turned to her mother, tears welling in her eyes. "But, Mama, remember what Daddy always said? Every living Thing deserves a fighting chance. Storm Warning just needs someone to believe in him, like how you believed in Daddy when he was sick." Jennifer's face softened at the mention of her late husband, Sarah's father. A veteran and horse trainer, he had passed away 2 years ago, after a long battle with cancer. His absence still echoed through their lives like footsteps in an empty barn. "Going once, at $28 and change," the auctioneer called, breaking the tense silence. "Going twice." "Wait." Jennifer raised her hand, resignation and something else, pride perhaps in her expression. "I'll cover the rest. $500 for the horse and immediate transport to River Bend Veterinary Clinic." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Dr. Mike Chen, the local vet, stepped forward. "Jennifer, are you sure about this? That horse needs extensive care. The medical bills alone." "We'll figure it out," Jennifer said firmly. She squeezed Sarah's shoulder. "My daughter sees something in him. That's good enough for me." The auctioneer's gavel fell with a sharp crack. "Sold to the Colemans." As the handlers led Storm Warning toward their trailer, Sarah heard the whispers start. "That poor girl's going to get her heart broken." Jennifer's lost her mind, letting her daughter take on that wreck. "Won't last a month, mark my words." Sarah blocked out the voices, focusing instead on Storm Warning's halting steps. When they reached the trailer, she held out her hand, palm up. The horse's soft muzzle brushed her skin, his breath warm against her fingers. "It's okay," she whispered. "I know you're scared, but I promise you're safe now. We're going to help each other get strong again." Storm Warning's ear flicked toward her voice. For a moment, his dull eyes seemed to brighten, like the first stars appearing at dusk. In the truck on the way to the clinic, Jennifer glanced at her daughter. "Sarah, this isn't going to be easy. That horse needs round-the-clock care, special feed, medical treatment. Are you ready for that kind of responsibility?" Sarah nodded, her face set with determination. "Daddy always said the things worth doing are never easy. Storm Warning and me, we're going to prove everyone wrong. You'll see." Jennifer smiled faintly, hearing echoes of her husband's stubborn optimism in their daughter's voice. "Well then, I guess we better stop at the feed store. Something tells me we're going to need a lot of hay." As the sun set behind the Montana mountains, casting long shadows across the valley, Sarah watched Storm Warning through the trailer window. The dying light caught his scraggly mane, turning it to threads of copper and gold. To everyone else, he was a broken-down nag, not worth saving. But Sarah saw something different. She saw a warrior who had lost his way, a fighter who just needed someone to stand beside him. And in his eyes she saw a reflection of her own determination to prove that sometimes the greatest strength comes from the most unlikely places. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe. To our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The journey was just beginning, but as their truck wound through the darkening hills toward home, Sarah made a silent promise to the horse who had captured her heart. Together, they would write a story that would leave the world breathless. The first rays of dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold as Sarah hurried through her morning chores at River Bend Veterinary Clinic. Her small hands worked quickly, measuring grain and filling water buckets. The familiar scents of hay and leather filled the air, mixing with the sharp tang of antiseptic from the medical wing. Storm Warning stood in the corner of his quarantine stall, his skeletal frame casting long shadows on the wall. Dr. Chen had spent hours examining him the night before, his face growing increasingly grave as he catalogued the horse's injuries. "Severe malnutrition," he'd muttered, making notes on his clipboard. "Muscle atrophy, joint inflammation, possible nerve damage in the left hind leg, and these scars." He'd traced the raised lines across Storm Warning's flanks. Someone worked this horse far past his breaking point. Now, Sarah approached the stall carefully, speaking in soft, steady tones. "Good morning, buddy. I brought you breakfast." She held out a handful of senior feed, specially formulated for undernourished horses. Storm Warning's ears twitched, but he didn't move from his corner. Sarah didn't push. Instead, she sat cross-legged on the clean straw and began to talk. "You know, when my daddy got sick, he couldn't eat much either. The medicine made everything taste wrong. So Mama and we'd sit with him during meals, telling him stories until he felt strong enough to try. Sometimes it took hours, but we never gave up." She pulled a small, worn notebook from her pocket. "I brought something to read to you. It's Daddy's training journal. He wrote down everything he learned about horses." She opened to the first page, her father's familiar handwriting making her throat tight. "The secret isn't in breaking their spirit," she read aloud, "but in showing them that trust can be stronger than fear." Storm Warning's head lifted slightly, his attention caught by the rhythm of her voice. Sarah smiled and continued reading, sharing her father's wisdom about patience, understanding, and the deep bond that could form between horse and human when both were willing to try. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, warming the clinic's metal roof. Occasionally, other horses nickered from nearby stalls, but Storm Warning remained silent, as if he'd forgotten how to speak the language of his own kind. Dr. Chen found them there during his morning rounds. He paused in the doorway, watching, as Sarah read quietly to the broken-down horse, who seemed to be listening despite himself. "Sarah," he said gently, "it's time for his medication." She looked up, closing the journal carefully. "Can I help?" The vet considered for a moment, then nodded. "Actually, yes. He seems calmer when you're near. But you have to follow my instructions exactly, okay? This is serious medicine we're dealing with." Sarah stood brushing straw from her jeans. "I'll do everything you say, Dr. Chen, I promise." Together they worked to administer Storm Warning's treatments. Sarah stood by his head, speaking softly, and stroking his neck while Dr. Chen gave injections and checked vital signs. The horse trembled, but didn't pull away. "He's starting to trust you," Dr. Chen observed, making notes in his chart. "That's the first step toward healing." "When will he be strong enough to come home?" Sarah asked. "That depends on him, and on you." Dr. Chen crouched to meet her eyes. "Sarah, rehabilitating a horse like this, it's not just about medicine and good food. Storm Warning's spirit is as damaged as his body. He needs to learn how to hope again." Sarah thought about that as she finished her morning tasks. Hope. It seemed such a simple thing, yet she'd seen how hard it could be to hold on to. She remembered the long nights in the hospital with her father, how they'd made plans for the future, even when they knew those plans might never come true. Sometimes, she realized, hope was an act of defiance against reality itself. Later that afternoon, Jennifer arrived with fresh supplies. She found Sarah sitting in the straw, demonstrating to Storm Warning how to solve her math homework. "And if you carry the two here," Sarah was explaining seriously, "the whole equation works out. See? Sometimes you have to break big problems." into smaller pieces. Jennifer leaned against the stall door, smiling despite herself. "How's our patient doing?" Sarah looked up, her face brightening. "He ate almost half his breakfast, Mama, and Dr. Chen says his blood work is looking better." "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Jennifer entered the stall carefully, noting how Storm Warning's muscles tensed at her approach. "Has he made any sounds yet?" Sarah shook her head. "Not yet, but his ears move when I talk to him. I think he's remembering how to listen." Jennifer reached out to touch her daughter's hair, her heart swelling with pride and worry. "You know, you remind me so much of your father right now. He never could resist a lost cause either." "Storm Warning isn't a lost cause," Sarah said firmly. "He's just lost. There's a difference." The rest of the day fell into a rhythm. Sarah completed her schoolwork between helping with Storm Warning's care. She read more from her father's journal, sharing stories about great horses who had overcome impossible odds. When it was time for the evening feeding, she mixed warm bran, mash with molasses and herbs, following Dr. Chen's recipe exactly. This time, Storm Warning took a few hesitant steps forward when she placed the bucket in his stall. Sarah held her breath as he lowered his head, sniffing the warm mash. His lips twitched, and slowly, carefully, he began to eat. "Good boy," Sarah whispered, her eyes filling with tears of joy. "That's it. Small steps, remember?" As the sun began to set, Jennifer appeared to take Sarah home. "Time to go, honey. Storm Warning needs his rest." Sarah gathered her things reluctantly. At the stall door, she turned back. "I'll be here first thing tomorrow," she promised. "We can start chapter 2 of Daddy's journal. It's about building trust through groundwork. I think you'll like it." Storm Warning lifted his head, meeting her eyes. For a moment, something flickered in their depths, a spark of interest, perhaps even anticipation. Sarah smiled, understanding the silent communication. On the drive home, Sarah pressed her face against the truck window, watching the stars emerge. Above the Montana mountains, her mind was already racing with plans for tomorrow, gentle exercises they could try, new foods to tempt Storm Warning's appetite, ways to help him remember that not all humans brought pain. "Mama," she said suddenly, "do you think Daddy would be proud of what we're doing for Storm Warning?" Jennifer reached over to squeeze her daughter's hand. "Oh, sweetheart, he's proud of you every single day. And you know what? I think he somehow knew you'd need this horse as much as this horse needs you." Sarah thought about that as they drove through the gathering darkness. Need. It was a powerful thing, she realized. Sometimes it could break you, like it had broken Storm Warning, but sometimes, if you were lucky, it could also rebuild you, stronger than before. That night, Sarah added a new entry to her own journal, right below her father's last words of wisdom. Day 1 with Storm Warning. Today we learned that healing begins with being heard. Tomorrow we learn to hope. The words weren't as elegant as her father's, but they held their own kind of truth. A truth about second chances, about the strength that comes from believing in something or someone when no one else will. As she drifted off to sleep, Sarah smiled, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new victories, and new opportunities to prove that even the most broken spirits could learn to soar again. The journey ahead would be long, but she was ready. After all, as her father always said, the size of the heart mattered more than the size of the task. And Sarah's heart like storm warnings, was far bigger than anyone knew. Days turned into weeks at Riverbend Veterinary Clinic, and with each sunrise, small miracles unfolded. Sarah arrived early one morning to find Storm Warning standing at his stall door, ears pricked forward in greeting. It was the first time he'd actively acknowledged her arrival, and her heart soared. "Look who's feeling more social today," Dr. Chen remarked, appearing beside her with his medical kit. His blood work came back much improved. "I think we can start some light exercise soon." Sarah bounced on her toes with excitement. "Really? Can I help?" "Actually," Dr. Chen said, setting down his kit, "I had something specific in mind. Have you ever heard of equine music therapy?" Sarah shook, her head intrigued. "Some studies have shown that certain types of music can help traumatized horses recover. It helps regulate their heart rate, reduces stress." He pulled out his phone. "I've been doing some research, and I think it might help Storm Warning reconnect with his body in a gentler way." That afternoon, they set up a small speaker in the barn aisle. Soft classical music filled the space, its rhythm steady and soothing. Sarah sat in her usual spot in Storm Warning's stall, watching as his ears swiveled toward the sound. "This is Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata," she told him, remembering what Dr. Chen had explained. "It's supposed to match the natural rhythm of a healthy horse's heartbeat." As the music played, Sarah noticed subtle changes in Storm Warning's posture. His head lowered slightly, his breathing deepened. She pulled out her father's journal and began to read, timing her words to the music's gentle flow. "Horses are like mirrors," she read. "They reflect our energy, our intentions, our fears. But they can also reflect our courage, our hope, our capacity for healing." Storm Warning took a tentative step toward her, then another. Sarah held her breath as he lowered his head, his muzzle inches from the journal. His nostrils flared, taking in the scent of worn leather and paper. "Would you like to see the pictures?" Sarah asked softly. She turned the page carefully, revealing her father's detailed sketches of horse anatomy, training patterns, and the invisible lines of trust that connected horse and human. Storm Warning's breath stirred the pages. Then, astonishingly, he made a sound, a tiny, questioning nicker. It was barely more than a whisper, but to Sarah it was like thunder. "Dr. Chen!" she called out, trying to contain her excitement. "He made a sound." The vet hurried over, his face breaking into a broad smile as Storm Warning nickered again, slightly stronger this time. "Well, would you look at that?" Dr. Chen said. "He's remembering his voice." That evening, when Jennifer came to pick up Sarah, she found them still in the stall. The music played softly, and Storm Warning stood near Sarah, his head lowered peacefully as she sketched in her own journal. "What are you drawing, honey?" Jennifer asked. Sarah held up the notebook. On the page was a careful drawing of Storm Warning, but not as he appeared now. In Sarah's sketch he was strong and proud, his neck arched, his legs moving with power and grace. "This is who he's going to be," Sarah explained. "I'm helping him remember." Jennifer studied the drawing, recognizing her late husband's artistic style in their daughter's careful lines. "You know, your father used to do the same thing. He said that sometimes horses need to see themselves through our eyes to remember who they truly are." The next morning, Sarah arrived to find Dr. Chen leading Storm Warning to the indoor arena. The horse's steps were hesitant, but his head was higher than she'd ever seen it. "Time to start rebuilding those muscles," Dr. Chen explained. "We'll begin with just a few minutes of walking. The music helped him find his voice. Now let's help him find his strength. Sarah walked beside Storm Warning as they circled the arena. The same classical music played through the speakers, and she noticed how he tried to match his steps to its rhythm. "That's it," she encouraged. "Nice and easy. Remember what the journal said about baby steps?" After a few minutes, Storm Warning began to tire, but instead of retreating into himself as he had before, he turned his head toward Sarah, seeking reassurance. She stroked his neck, feeling the muscles trembling with effort. "You did so well," she told him. "Tomorrow we'll go a little further." As they walked back to his stall, they passed other horses being led to turnout. Instead of shrinking away as he usually did, Storm Warning's ears pricked forward with interest. One of the horses, a gentle old mare named Buttercup, nickered a greeting. To everyone's amazement, Storm Warning answered with a small but clear nicker of his own. "Would you listen to that?" the barn manager said, pausing with her lead rope. "Sounds like somebody's remembering how to be a horse." That afternoon, Sarah sat in the stall doing her homework while Storm Warning dozed in the corner. The music played softly, and occasionally he would lift his head to listen when a new piece began. "You know what this reminds me of?" Sarah said, setting aside her math book. "When Daddy was sick, we had a special playlist we'd listen to during his treatments. He said the music helped him stay brave, even when things were really hard." She stood and walked to Storm Warning's side. Gently, she began to hum along with the melody, her small hand resting on his shoulder. To her surprise, she felt some of the tension leave his muscles. "Music is kind of magical, isn't it?" she continued. "It's like it helps us feel things we can't put into words. And sometimes when we're really scared or sad, it reminds us that beauty still exists in the world." Storm Warning turned his head toward her, his eyes softer than she'd ever seen them. Slowly, carefully, he lowered his muzzle to her shoulder, not seeking food or comfort, but offering connection. Sarah wrapped her arms around his neck, breathing in his warm horse scent. "We're going to dance together someday," she whispered. "You'll see, we'll make our own kind of music." That night, as Sarah got ready for bed, she heard her mother on the phone with Dr. Chen. "The improvement in just a few weeks is remarkable," he was saying. "I've never seen anything quite like it. Your daughter has a gift, Jennifer. She's not just helping him heal physically, she's helping him remember who he is." Sarah smiled as she pulled her blanket up to her chin. On her bedside table, her father's journal lay open to a new page of her own writing. Day 23, with Storm Warning. Today we learned that healing has its own melody. Sometimes you just have to be brave enough to listen. Outside her window, the Montana night was alive with its own music. The whisper of wind through pine trees, the distant call of an owl, the steady rhythm of the world turning toward tomorrow. Sarah fell asleep thinking of Storm Warning, standing tall and proud in her dreams, his spirit rising like a song toward the stars. The journey was far from over, but something had shifted. In finding his voice, Storm Warning had taken the first step toward finding himself, and in helping him, Sarah was discovering her own kind of music, a melody of hope, determination, and the kind of love that could bridge any silence. Tomorrow would bring new notes to their song, new steps to their dance, but for now, in the quiet of the night, both girl and horse rested peacefully, their hearts beating in harmony with the endless symphony of healing. The autumn morning dawned, crisp and clear as Sarah led Storm Warning into the outdoor arena for the first time. 6 weeks of careful rehabilitation had transformed the skeletal horse into something different. Not yet the proud warrior of her drawings, but no longer the broken creature from the auction. "Ready for something new?" Sarah asked, running her hand along his neck. The classical music that had become their constant companion played softly from a portable speaker, carrying across the arena on the morning breeze. Dr. Chen stood at the gate, stopwatch in hand. "Remember what we discussed, Sarah? 10 minutes, maximum, and if he shows any signs of stress, we stop immediately." Sarah nodded, her expression serious. "I remember." She turned to Storm Warning, who was taking in the unfamiliar surroundings with alert ears. "It's okay, buddy, just like inside, but with more sunshine." She began leading him in a slow walk around the perimeter. Storm Warning's steps were hesitant at first, his hooves leaving clear prints in the freshly dragged sand. But as they continued, something remarkable happened. The morning sun caught his coat, revealing hints of copper beneath the dull bay. His neck began to arch slightly, nostrils flaring as he caught the scent of wild sage from the nearby hills. With each step, his movement became more fluid, more joyful. "Sarah," Dr. Chen called softly, "look at his tail." Sarah glanced back and gasped. Storm Warning's tail had lifted from its usual listless droop, swaying gently as he walked. It was a small thing, but in the world of horses, it spoke volumes about his state of mind. "That's a happy tail," Sarah whispered, remembering her father's words. "Daddy always said you could read a horse's mood by watching their tail." They completed several circuits of the arena, Storm Warning growing more confident with each round. Near the end of their session, a meadowlark landed on the fence, its morning song joining the classical music in an impromptu duet. Storm Warning stopped, ears pricked toward the bird. Then, to Sarah's amazement, he let out a clear, strong nicker. Not the hesitant whisper of recent weeks, but a real horse greeting, full of life and curiosity. The meadowlark tilted its head, considering this large audience, then launched into an even more elaborate song. Storm Warning watched, fascinated, his whole demeanor changing from cautious to engaged. "He's remembering how to be curious, Doctor," Chen observed, making notes on his clipboard. "That's a huge step forward." As if to prove the point, Storm Warning took a step toward the fence, then another, drawing Sarah with him. The meadowlark held its ground, continuing its performance. When they got close, Storm Warning stretched out his neck, nostrils fluttering as he investigated this tiny musician. The bird finished its song with a flourish and flew off, but Storm Warning remained alert, scanning the fence line as if hoping for an encore. Sarah felt tears in her eyes, remembering how just weeks ago he had been too defeated to even lift his head. "You liked that, didn't you?" she asked, stroking his forelock. "There's so much beautiful music in the world, once you start listening for it." Later that morning, Sarah sat on the arena fence making notes in her journal while Storm Warning grazed nearby. The improvement in his appetite had been dramatic. Where once he had to be coaxed to eat even soft, soaked feed, now he attacked the grass with genuine enthusiasm. "Mind if I join you?" Sarah looked up to see Lisa Martinez, one of the clinic's teenage volunteers, approaching with her own lunch. The older girl had been fascinated by Storm Warning's progress, often stopping to watch Sarah work with him. How does she do it? Sarah had once overheard Lisa asking Dr. Chen, "She's just a kid," but that horse looks at her like she hung the moon. Now Lisa settled beside Sarah on the fence, unwrapping a sandwich. He looks amazing today. I can't believe it's the same horse. Sarah beamed with pride. Did you hear him nicker at the meadowlark? It was like they were having a conversation. I saw that. Lisa took a bite of her sandwich, chewing thoughtfully. You know, my abuela, my grandmother, she always says that music speaks straight to the soul. Maybe that's what's happening with Storm Warning. You're helping him find his soul again. Sarah considered this, watching as Storm Warning lifted his head to catch a breeze, his forelock dancing in the wind. I think his soul was always there, she said finally. He just needed someone to remind him how to let it shine. After lunch, Dr. Chen brought out some ground poles, simple rails laid flat for Storm Warning to walk over. Time to work on coordination and spatial awareness, he explained as he set them up. The music helped him find his rhythm. Now let's help him remember how to use his body properly. Sarah led Storm Warning toward the poles, speaking softly. At first he eyed them suspiciously, remembering perhaps other obstacles that had caused him pain. But Sarah didn't rush him. See, they're just like little bridges, she explained, demonstrating by stepping over them herself. We'll cross them together. Storm Warning watched her intently, then carefully picked up his feet, placing them with exaggerated precision between the poles. Each successful step seemed to boost his confidence. Good boy, Sarah praised. You're so smart. By the end of the session, Storm Warning was navigating the poles with growing assurance. Dr. Chen added a new piece to their music playlist, something with a bit more energy, and Sarah noticed how Storm Warning's steps began to match its livelier rhythm. He's dancing, she realized aloud, delighted. Look, Dr. Chen, he's actually dancing. Indeed, there was a new spring in Storm Warning's step, a hint of natural grace emerging from beneath the layers of fear and pain. As they made their final pass over the poles, he even gave a little head toss, like a performer taking a bow. That evening, as Sarah prepared to leave, she had an idea. Retrieving her speaker, she queued up a new song, not classical this time, but a gentle country ballad her father used to love. This was Daddy's favorite, she told Storm Warning, setting the speaker on his stall door. He said it reminded him of summer nights and good horses and everything right with the world. The music filled the stall, guitar notes as warm as sunset. Storm Warning cocked his head, listening. Then, to Sarah's joy, he began to sway slightly, moving with the melody. Oh my goodness, Jennifer breathed from the doorway. James used to do that with his horses too, share his favorite songs with them. Said music was the fastest way to a horse's heart. Sarah smiled, leaning against Storm Warning's shoulder. I think Daddy would have loved Storm Warning, she said softly. He always said the best horses are the ones who teach us as much as we teach them. That night, Sarah added to her journal, Day 42 with Storm Warning. Today we learned that healing isn't just about getting stronger or braver. Sometimes it's about remembering how to dance, even when the music seems far away. As she wrote, she could almost hear her father's voice. Keep going, baby girl. Every great partnership starts with a single step and a willing heart. Outside her window, the stars emerged one by one, like musical notes on the infinite score of the night sky. Somewhere out in the clinic's pastures, a horse nickered softly in the darkness, perhaps Storm Warning, adding his voice to the evening symphony. The next day would bring new challenges, new songs to learn, new steps to master. But for now, Sarah let herself dream of future dances, of music yet unheard, of the day when Storm Warning would run free and strong, his spirit soaring as high as the meadowlark's song. For in helping him find his music, she had discovered her own, a melody of patience, courage, and the kind of love that could turn even the smallest moments into magic. 2 months into Storm Warning's rehabilitation, the Montana autumn had painted the clinic's surroundings in vibrant golds and crimsons. Sarah arrived early one morning to find Dr. Chen studying a series of new X-rays on his lightboard. "Good news," he said as she hung up her jacket. "The bone density in his legs has improved significantly. I think it's time to try something more challenging." Sarah's eyes lit up. "Really? What kind of challenge?" Dr. Chen led her to the indoor arena, where he had set up an unusual arrangement. Several large exercise balls were scattered around the space, along with colorful cones and a series of ground poles arranged in a zigzag pattern. "Welcome to horse obstacle play therapy," he announced. "It's a relatively new technique for building confidence and spatial awareness. The idea is to make rehabilitation feel more like a game than work." When they brought Storm Warning in, his reaction surprised them both. Instead of his usual caution, he showed immediate interest in the strange objects, particularly a large, purple exercise ball. "He's curious," Sarah observed with delight. "Look at his eyes, they're bright." Following Dr. Chen's instructions, Sarah began leading Storm Warning through the obstacle course. The exercise balls moved unpredictably when touched, but instead of spooking, Storm Warning seemed intrigued. He nudged the purple ball with his nose, then jumped playfully when it rolled away. "Sarah!" Dr. Chen called out. "Did you see that? That was play behavior." Tears sprang to Sarah's eyes. After everything Storm Warning had been through, after all the pain and fear, he was learning to play again. It was like watching a flower bloom in winter, unexpected and miraculous. They spent the morning introducing different challenges. Storm Warning learned to push the ball with his nose, to weave between cones, to step sideways over poles. With each success, his confidence grew visibly. During their lunch break, Sarah sat on a mounting block sharing an apple with Storm Warning. "You know what?" she told him. "I think you're having fun, actually having fun." The horse's response was to lip her pocket, searching for more treats. Sarah laughed, a sound that would have sent him trembling just weeks ago. Now he merely flicked an ear toward her, acknowledging her joy while continuing his treat investigation. That afternoon, something extraordinary happened. As Sarah led Storm Warning through the obstacle course, Lisa arrived for her volunteer shift. She was carrying her guitar, planning to practice during her break. "Oh, sorry," Lisa apologized, starting to back away. "I didn't realize you were working." "No, wait," Sarah called out. Could you play something? I want to see how Storm Warning reacts." Lisa settled on a hay bale and began to play a gentle Spanish melody, her fingers dancing. Across the strings, Storm Warning stopped in his tracks, ears pricked forward. Then, to everyone's amazement, he began to move in time with the music, his feet lifting in an almost dance-like pattern. "Sarah," Dr. Chen whispered, "guide him toward the purple ball." She did, and what happened next left them all speechless. Storm Warning, moving to the rhythm of Lisa's guitar, began to push the ball in a circle, creating his own game. His movements were fluid, graceful, nothing like the broken-down horse from the auction. "It's like he's choreographing his own rehabilitation," Dr. Chen marveled, quickly grabbing his phone to record the moment. The impromptu session lasted nearly an hour. Lisa played song after song, while Storm Warning invented new ways to interact with the obstacles. He wove between cones like a dancer, pushed balls in time to the music, and even attempted a small leap over a low pole, his first voluntary jump since arriving at the clinic. "This is incredible," Lisa said during a break. "My abuela was right about music healing the soul. But this is like watching someone remember who they really are." That evening, when Jennifer came to pick up Sarah, she found her daughter in tears, but they were tears of joy. "Mama, you should have seen him," Sarah exclaimed. "He was dancing and playing and just being a horse again." Jennifer hugged her daughter close. "Your father always said that horses never forget who they truly are. Sometimes they just need someone to help them remember." The next morning, Sarah arrived to find an unexpected visitor at the clinic. Marcus Thompson, a renowned equine behaviorist, was deep in conversation with Dr. Chen. "I saw the video you sent," Marcus was saying. "In 30 years of rehabilitation work, I've never seen anything quite like it. The combination of music, play therapy, and that little girl's intuitive understanding." Oh. He trailed off as he noticed Sarah. "Ah, here she is, the miracle worker herself." Sarah blushed. "I'm not a miracle worker. Storm Warning did all the hard work. I just helped him remember how to be himself." Marcus smiled. "That young lady is exactly what makes it miraculous." He crouched down to her level. "Would you mind showing me how you work with him? I'd like to learn from you." For the next few hours, Sarah demonstrated their routine. She showed Marcus how they used music to set the mood, how certain songs inspired different movements, how they had transformed rehabilitation exercises into games. Storm Warning seemed to sense the importance of the moment. He performed each task with newfound confidence, even adding his own flourishes, a playful head toss here, a precise sidestep there. "Extraordinary," Marcus murmured, taking notes. "He's not just going through the motions. He's actively engaging, creating, expressing himself." He turned to Dr. Chen. "We need to document this. It could revolutionize how we approach trauma rehabilitation in horses." Later, as they watched Storm Warning play with his beloved purple ball, Marcus asked Sarah a question that made her think. "What's your secret? How did you know this would work?" Sarah considered carefully before answering. I remembered how it felt when my daddy was sick. How sometimes the hardest part wasn't the pain or the medicine, but feeling like you'd lost yourself, like you'd forgotten how to be happy." She stroked Storm Warning's nose. "I thought maybe horses feel the same way. Maybe they just need someone to remind them that it's okay to play again, to trust again, to be themselves again." That night, Sarah made a special entry in her journal. Day 68 with Storm Warning. "Today we learned that healing isn't just about getting better. Sometimes it's about rediscovering joy in unexpected places. And sometimes the best medicine isn't medicine at all. It's remembering how to dance to your own music." As she wrote, she could hear Storm Warning nickering softly in his stall, probably dreaming of purple balls and Spanish guitars and all the new games tomorrow might bring. His voice was strong now, confident, full of life, the voice of a horse who had remembered not just how to survive, but how to thrive. Outside, the autumn wind sang through the changing leaves, adding its wild music to their ongoing symphony of recovery. Sarah smiled, knowing that every day brought them closer to the moment when storm warning would run free and strong, his spirit as bright as the stars that watched over their dreams. For in helping him find his way back to joy, she had discovered something precious herself. The knowledge that sometimes the greatest healing comes not from fixing what's broken, but from nurturing what remains unbroken. The spark of playfulness, the capacity for joy, and the courage to dance even when the path ahead seems uncertain. 3 months into storm warning's rehabilitation, an unexpected challenge emerged. The morning began like any other, with Sarah arriving early to find her equine partner waiting eagerly at his stall door. But today, something was different. Storm Warning's ears were pinned back, his eyes showing a glint of their old fear. Dr. Chen appeared at Sarah's side, his face concerned. "There's a traveling rodeo setting up at the fairgrounds next door," he explained quietly. "The sounds." As if on cue, a loud speaker crackled to life, followed by the sharp crack of a stock whip. Storm Warning recoiled, pressing himself against the back wall of his stall. His whole body trembled, old trauma surfacing like a ghost. Sarah's heart sank. They'd made so much progress, but now the past was threatening to undo everything. Then she remembered something from her father's journal. When a horse faces his fears, don't focus on the fear itself. Create a new story around it. "Dr. Chen," she said suddenly, "can we move Storm Warning to the indoor arena? And can we invite Lisa to bring her guitar?" The vet's eyes lit up with understanding. "Ah, I see where you're going with this. Yes, absolutely." Within 30 minutes, they had transformed the indoor arena into a sanctuary. Lisa sat on her hay bale, guitar ready. Sarah had brought Storm Warning's favorite purple exercise ball and set up their usual obstacle course. Most importantly, they had their own speakers ready to create their own soundscape. As they led Storm Warning in, another crack of the rodeo whip made him startle. But this time Sarah was ready. She nodded to Lisa, who began playing a gentle Spanish lullaby, the same one that had first inspired Storm Warning to dance. "Remember this?" Sarah asked softly, guiding him toward the purple ball. "Remember how much fun we had?" Storm Warning's ears flicked toward the music, though his body remained tense. Sarah began to hum along, moving the bull slightly with her foot. The horse watched, his fear warring with his curiosity. "It's okay to be scared," Sarah told him, "but you're not alone anymore. We can make our own music, louder than any scary sounds." Gradually, Storm Warning began to relax. When the next whip crack came, Lisa smoothly increased her volume, while Sarah encouraged Storm Warning to push his ball. Soon he was so engaged in their game that he barely noticed the rodeo sounds. The breakthrough came an hour later. A particularly loud announcement boomed from next door, but instead of spooking, Storm Warning responded by pushing his ball with extra enthusiasm, as if saying, "My game is more interesting than your noise." "Sarah!" Dr. Chen called from the sidelines where he'd been observing. "Do you realize what just happened? He's self-regulating, using play to manage his anxiety." Marcus Thompson, who had stayed on as a consultant, nodded approvingly. "This is remarkable. Instead of fighting the trigger or fleeing from it, he's choosing to focus on a positive alternative. That's sophisticated emotional processing." Throughout the day, they continued their work, gradually incorporating new elements. When the rodeo music played, they played their own. When crowds cheered next door, they celebrated Storm Warning's successful completion of obstacles. Every potentially triggering sound became an opportunity for a new, joyful experience. By late afternoon, something magical happened. During a particularly energetic Spanish guitar piece, Storm Warning began to move in a way they'd never seen before. His steps became elevated, his neck arched naturally, and his tail flagged high. He was performing passage-like movements, an advanced dressage movement that normally took years of training. "My God," Marcus whispered, "that's his past coming through, but the good parts. Those are the movements of a highly trained horse. He's not just remembering his fear, he's remembering his training, his abilities." Sarah watched in awe as Storm Warning continued to dance, his movements becoming more confident, more expressive. This wasn't the frightened horse from the auction, nor even the healing horse of recent weeks. This was an artist remembering his art. That evening, as they cooled Storm Warning out, Lisa played one final song, a triumphant Spanish ballad about overcoming obstacles. The horse stood quietly, ears forward, listening. When she finished, he walked over and gently nuzzled her guitar. "I think that's a request for an encore." Sarah laughed, her eyes shining with happy tears. Dr. Chen pulled Jennifer aside as she arrived to pick up Sarah. "Your daughter did something incredible today," he said. "She didn't just help Storm Warning cope with his triggers. She helped him transform them into opportunities for growth. That's advanced therapeutic work that many professionals struggle to achieve." Jennifer watched as Sarah gave Storm Warning a final hug goodbye. "She has her father's gift," she said softly. "James always said that true healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about building a future strong enough to carry it." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. Her mind was too full of the day's events, of the moment when Storm Warning had transformed from a frightened survivor into a dancing warrior. She pulled out her journal and wrote, "Day 92 with Storm Warning. Today we learned that sometimes the things that scare us can become the things that free us. It's not about being fearless. It's about finding something you love more, and then you fear your fears." She added a sketch, Storm Warning in full passage, his head proud, his movement powerful. Below it she wrote her father's words, "Every horse has a song in their heart. Our job isn't to give them music, but to help them find their own." The next morning, Sarah arrived to find Storm Warning standing tall in his stall, ears pricked toward the rodeo grounds. The sounds continued, but they no longer held power over him. He had found his own music, stronger than any echo of the past. As they began their morning routine, Sarah noticed something new in Storm Warning's eyes. Not just trust or happiness, but pride. He had faced his demons and discovered that he was stronger than they were. In helping him find this strength, Sarah had discovered something too, that sometimes the greatest victories come not from avoiding what scares us, but from dancing with our fears until they become part of our strength. The rodeo would continue for a week, but they no longer needed to hide from its sounds. Instead, they would use each day to create new memories, new songs, new dances. For in choosing to face their challenges with creativity and courage, they had discovered that every obstacle could become an opportunity, and every fear could become a stepping stone to something beautiful. Storm Warning's journey from broken auction horse to confident dancer was far from over. But something fundamental had shifted. He had remembered not just how to move, but how to move with purpose, with joy, with artistry. And in his transformation, he was teaching everyone around him that healing isn't just about getting better. It's about becoming more fully yourself than you ever were before. The winter winds swept across Montana, bringing with them an unexpected opportunity. Sarah arrived at the clinic one morning to find Dr. Chen, Marcus, and her mother deep in discussion, their faces alight with excitement. "There you are," Dr. Chen called out. "We have something to discuss with you and Storm Warning." Sarah approached curiously, noting the glossy brochure in Marcus's hands. "What is it?" "The Winter Stars Equine Exhibition," Marcus explained, handing her the brochure. "It's a showcase for innovative rehabilitation techniques and extraordinary partnerships. After seeing Storm Warning's progress, particularly his response to music therapy, they've invited you both to perform." Sarah's eyes widened as she scanned the brochure. The exhibition was held at Silver Creek Arena, one of the most prestigious equestrian facilities in the state. Performers came from all over the country to demonstrate groundbreaking work in horse rehabilitation and training. "They want us." Sarah's voice trembled with disbelief. Jennifer knelt beside her daughter. "Only if you feel ready, honey. There's no pressure." Sarah walked to Storm Warning's stall, where he greeted her with his now customary gentle nicker. His eyes were bright and alert, his coat gleaming with health. Gone was the skeletal rescue horse. In his place stood a transformed creature, strong and proud. "What do you think, buddy?" she asked, stroking his neck. "Should we show them what we can do?" Storm Warning responded by reaching for the pocket where she kept his peppermints, making her laugh. Even his sense of humor had returned over the months of rehabilitation. "I think that's a yes," Dr. Chen chuckled, "but it means taking him off the property for the first time since the auction. Are you both ready for that challenge?" Sarah thought about how far they'd come. From the terrified horse who couldn't even eat to the confident dancer who had overcome his rodeo fears. "Yes," she said firmly, "we're ready." The preparation began immediately. Marcus helped them design a routine that would showcase Storm Warning's journey from trauma to triumph. Lisa worked on arranging a special musical piece that combined classical elements with Spanish guitar, creating a unique soundtrack for their performance. But the most important preparation happened in quiet moments between girl and horse. Each day, Sarah would read to Storm Warning from her father's journal, sharing wisdom that seemed especially relevant now. "True partnership isn't about control," she read one afternoon. "It's about trust. About two hearts choosing to beat in time with each other." They practiced their routine for hours, refining each movement until it flowed naturally. Storm Warning's passage-like steps had evolved into true dressage movements. Performed not through training, but through joy, he would dance with his purple exercise ball, showing how play therapy had helped him heal. Most remarkably, he had learned to bow, not as a trick, but as a genuine expression of partnership. 1 week before the exhibition, they faced their biggest test yet. Dr. Chen arranged for them to practice in an unfamiliar arena, complete with speakers, crowds, and unexpected noises. "We need to know how he'll handle a new environment," he explained. The first few minutes were tense. Storm Warning's ears swiveled nervously, his steps uncertain. But then Sarah remembered their breakthrough during the rodeo. Instead of forcing him to work through his anxiety, she pulled out their purple ball and invited him to play. The transformation was immediate. As soon as the familiar game began, Storm Warning relaxed. When Lisa started playing their special music, he lifted his head and began to dance, as confident in this strange place as he was at home. "Look at that," Marcus marveled. "He's not just coping, he's performing. He knows his job and he's proud of it." The day of the exhibition arrived with a crystal-clear winter morning. Snow dusted the mountains around Silver Creek Arena, and the air sparkled with frost. Sarah stood with storm warning in the warm-up area, braiding ribbons into his mane that matched the purple of his beloved ball. "I used to dream about performing here," Lisa said as she tuned her guitar. "But I never imagined it would be like this, helping a horse tell his story through music." Suddenly, a commotion near the entrance caught their attention. A group of people were pointing and whispering, their faces shocked. Sarah turned to see what they were looking at and froze. There, walking through the door, was Jim Miller, Storm Warning's former owner. "That's my horse," he was saying loudly, "the one I sold to the auction. No way that broken-down nag could be performing here." Storm Warning tensed, his ears flattening. But before fear could take hold, Sarah began to hum their song. His focus returned to her immediately, trust overriding memory. Dr. Chen and Marcus intercepted Jim before he could approach. "That horse belongs to Sarah Coleman now," Dr. Chen said firmly, "and he's not broken anymore, he's whole." The exhibition organizer, an elegant woman named Victoria Hayes, joined them. "Mr. Miller, you're welcome to watch the performance, but I suggest you do so quietly. What you're about to see might teach you something about the power of compassion over force." As their performance time approached, Sarah led Storm Warning to the arena entrance. She could hear the announcer talking about their journey, about innovative rehabilitation techniques and the healing power of music. But all that mattered was the quiet connection between girl and horse. "Ready to show them who you really are?" she whispered. Storm Warning answered by touching his nose to her shoulder, their private signal for together. They entered the arena to soft lighting and expectant silence. Lisa began to play, her guitar notes rising like prayer. Sarah released Storm Warning to move freely, and he began their dance. What happened next left the audience breathless. Storm Warning moved with fluid grace, transitioning from classical dressage movements to playful interactions with his purple ball. He danced with joy, with power, with absolute trust in his young partner. When Sarah joined him, their movements synchronized perfectly, telling the story of healing through their elegant choreography. The highlight came when Storm Warning performed his passage steps, the very movements that had first revealed his hidden talents. But now they were stronger, more refined, performed not from training, but from pure artistic expression. In the stands, Jim Miller watched in stunned silence as his former broken-down nag moved like a champion, his spirit shining brighter than any show horse's. For their finale, Storm Warning performed his bow, not to the audience, but to Sarah. Then, in an unplanned moment that brought tears to every eye, he lifted his head to the sky and let out a triumphant neigh, as if announcing to the world that he had found his voice, his strength, and his heart. The arena erupted in applause. Victoria Hayes wiped tears from her eyes as she approached them. "In 30 years of equestrian events, I've never seen anything like this. You haven't just rehabilitated a horse, you've revealed the true meaning of partnership." That evening, as they prepared to head home, Jim Miller approached them one last time. But instead of anger, his face showed something like awe. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "I thought he was finished. But you saw something I couldn't see. You gave him back his spirit." Sarah looked up at him, her hand steady on Storm Warning's neck. His spirit was always there. He just needed someone to believe in it. Back at the clinic, Sarah made a special entry in her journal. Day 120 with Storm Warning. Today we learned that true healing isn't about becoming something new. It's about finding the courage to be who you were always meant to be. As she wrote, Storm Warning stood in his stall, no longer a rescue case, but a proud partner, a dancer, a teacher of hearts. His journey from auction outcast to exhibition star had shown everyone who witnessed it that sometimes the greatest transformations come not from changing who we are, but from finally becoming who we truly are. And in the end, that was the real miracle. Not just the healing of a broken horse, but the revelation that within every wounded spirit lies a dancer waiting to soar. The success at the Winter Stars Equine exhibition opened doors neither Sarah nor Storm Warning could have imagined. A week after their performance, Victoria Hayes arrived at Riverbend Clinic with an extraordinary proposal. "We're launching a new program," she explained, spreading documents across Dr. Chen's office desk. "The Healing Hearts Initiative, combining music therapy, play-based rehabilitation, and youth mentorship for traumatized horses and children." Sarah sat beside her mother, Storm Warning visible through the window as he played with his purple ball in the outdoor arena. The winter sun caught his coat, highlighting the healthy shine that had replaced his once dull fur. "We'd like you and Storm Warning to be our flagship team," Victoria continued. "Your story has already inspired so many. Imagine how many more you could help." The program would involve working with other rescued horses and children facing their own challenges. Sarah thought about how far she and Storm Warning had come, how their shared journey had healed them both. "Could we really help other kids and horses?" she asked, her voice soft with wonder. Victoria nodded. "Your methods are revolutionary, Sarah. The way you combined music, play, and trust building. It's exactly what we've been looking for." The next morning, they welcomed their first visitors, a group of children from the local therapeutic riding center, each carrying their own battles. Among them was Tommy, a 10-year-old boy who hadn't spoken since losing his parents in a car accident 6 months ago. Sarah led Storm Warning into the arena, where his purple ball and other toys were arranged. Lisa sat ready with her guitar, and speakers were positioned to play their special music. "Sometimes," Sarah told the children, "when we're really hurt or scared, we forget how to be ourselves. Storm Warning taught me that healing doesn't always look like what we expect. Sometimes it looks like playing with a purple ball. Sometimes it sounds like Spanish guitar. And sometimes it's just about finding someone who believes in you until you remember how to believe in yourself." She demonstrated their routine, showing how Storm Warning had progressed from basic exercises to dancing. The children watched, mesmerized, as the once broken horse moved with fluid grace and obvious joy. Then something remarkable happened. Tommy, who had been sitting silently at the edge of the group, stood up and walked toward Storm Warning. The horse lowered his head, gentle and intuitive, as the boy reached out to touch his nose. For a long moment they stood connected. Then, in a voice rusty from disuse, Tommy whispered, "He's like me." Sarah felt tears in her eyes as she nodded. "Would you like to help me play with him?" Tommy nodded, and Sarah showed him how to roll the purple ball. Storm Warning, seeming to understand the significance of the moment, played with exaggerated gentleness, making the boy smile for the first time in months. By the end of the session, Tommy had spoken several more words, each When celebrated by the astonished staff, his therapist pulled Sarah aside, eyes shining. "What you've done here, it's extraordinary. Storm warning showed Tommy that it's okay to find your voice again." The success of that first session led to more. Children came from all over the state, some dealing with trauma, others with different challenges. Each one connected with Storm, warning in their own way. There was Maria, a teenage girl with severe anxiety, who found calm in grooming Storm warning while Lisa played guitar. There was Alex, a young boy with autism, who discovered he could communicate through movement after watching Storm warning dance. But perhaps the most powerful moment came when they worked with Luna, a rescued mare who had arrived at the clinic as traumatized as Storm warning had once been. "Watch this," Sarah told the gathered children as she and Storm warning entered Luna's paddock. Instead of approaching the frightened mare directly, Storm warning began his playful routine with the purple ball, showing Luna that the humans and objects in her space could bring joy rather than fear. Gradually, Luna's curiosity overcame her terror. She took one step forward, then another. Storm warning invited her to join his game with gentle, nickering sounds, demonstrating an emotional intelligence that left even Marcus amazed. "He's become more than a success story," Marcus observed. "He's become a healer in his own right." The Healing Hearts initiative grew rapidly. Other clinics began adopting their methods, using music and play to reach traumatized horses. Sarah and Storm warning traveled to give demonstrations, sharing their story and teaching others their unique approach to rehabilitation. But they never forgot their roots. Every morning, Sarah still read from her father's journal, sharing quiet moments with Storm warning before their busy day began. She added her own observations too, documenting their continuing journey. "Dear Daddy," she wrote one evening, "I think I finally understand what you meant about horses being mirrors. Storm warning doesn't just reflect what we show him. He reflects what we could be. He shows scared children that they can be brave, silent children that they can speak, and broken horses that they can dance again." Their work caught the attention of researchers studying equine-assisted therapy. Dr. Chen collaborated with universities to document the effects of their music-based rehabilitation program. The results were remarkable. Horses responded more quickly and showed longer-lasting improvement when music and play were incorporated into their recovery. One spring morning, almost a year after they'd first met, Sarah sat in Storm warning's paddock, watching him teach a newly rescued horse how to play. His movements were confident and gentle, his entire being focused on helping another soul find its way back to joy. "You know what amazes me most," Lisa said, sitting beside Sarah with her guitar. "He not only healed himself, he learned how to help others heal too." Sarah nodded, remembering the frightened horse from the auction. "I think that's what healing really means. Not just getting better, but using what you've learned to light the way for others." The Spanish guitar music filled the air as Storm warning demonstrated his favorite games to his new friend. The rescued horse, tentative at first, began to mirror his movements, taking small steps toward trust. That evening, as Sarah prepared to head home, she found Victoria in Dr. Chen's office, reviewing files of new candidates for the program. "Sarah," Victoria called her in, "we've been invited to present at the National Equine Therapy Conference. They want to feature Storm warning as a case study in innovative rehabilitation techniques." Sarah looked through the window at her partner. now grazing peacefully in the sunset light. He's come so far from that auction day. You both have, Victoria smiled. You've shown the world that healing isn't just about recovering from trauma. It's about discovering your purpose. That night, Sarah added a new entry to her journal. Day 365 with storm warning. Today we learned that sometimes the greatest gift isn't being healed. It's being able to help others heal. Every scared heart we help, every silent voice we encourage, every broken spirit we inspire to dance again. That's the real miracle. As she wrote, she could hear Storm Warning's gentle nickers from the paddock, still teaching, still healing, still dancing his way into hearts that needed to remember how to hope. Their journey had become more than just a story of rehabilitation. It had become a beacon of hope for others facing their own battles. For in choosing to believe in a broken horse at an auction, Sarah had started a ripple effect of healing that continued to spread, touching lives and transforming spirits, one purple ball and one Spanish guitar note at a time. And somewhere she knew her father was smiling, watching his daughter and a once broken horse teach the world that sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't medicine at all. It's the courage to believe, the willingness to play, and the determination to keep dancing even when the path ahead seems impossible. For in the end, that was Storm Warning's greatest lesson, that within every wounded heart lies the potential not just to heal, but to become a healer, to transform pain into purpose, fear into courage, and silence into song. The National Equine Therapy Conference brought an unexpected challenge that would test everything Storm Warning and Sarah had achieved. As they prepared for their presentation in Denver's Grand Exhibition Center, an early spring storm rolled in from the mountains, bringing thunder that shook the building's foundations. Sarah found Storm Warning in his temporary stall, trembling but not panicking. A year ago, such weather would have sent him into a terrified frenzy. Now, though anxious, he looked to her for guidance. "Remember our storm song?" Sarah asked softly, and pulling out her phone. Lisa had recorded their special music for moments like this. The gentle Spanish melody filled the stall, competing with the thunder's growl. But this time they weren't alone. In the neighboring stall, a young mare named Spirit Sky was having a full meltdown, throwing herself against the walls in terror. Her owner, a therapy center director named Rachel, tried desperately to calm her. "She was rescued from a wildfire," Rachel explained, her voice tight with worry. "Loud noises. They bring it all back." Sarah watched Storm Warning's ears swivel toward the frightened mare. Then, to everyone's amazement, he began to nicker softly, the same gentle, encouraging sound he used when helping traumatized horses at home. "Rachel," Sarah said suddenly, "would you mind if we tried something?" With Rachel's permission, they carefully opened the partition between the stalls. Storm Warning stood calmly as Spirit Sky pressed herself into the corner, wild-eyed with fear. Instead of approaching her, he began his familiar dance with an invisible purple ball, moving to the Spanish guitar music with deliberate grace. Gradually, Spirit Sky's panic subsided, replaced by curiosity. Her ears flicked forward, tracking Storm Warning's movements. When the next thunderclap came, she startled, but instead of bolting, she moved closer to Storm Warning, drawn to his steady presence. "He's teaching her how to be brave," Rachel whispered in awe. Sarah nodded, remembering her father's words. Sometimes the best way to help someone heal is to show them it's possible. By the time the storm passed, Spirit Sky had learned to sway gently to the music, mirroring storm warnings calm. Rachel had tears in her eyes. In 6 months of traditional therapy, we've never made this much progress, she said. Would you? Would you be willing to share your methods with our center? The request led to an impromptu workshop right there in the stable aisle. Other trainers and therapists gathered as Sarah demonstrated their unique combination of music, movement, and trust building. Storm warning showed how play could transform fear into curiosity, and how dancing could rebuild confidence. Dr. Chen arrived to find his young student teaching some of the most experienced professionals in the field. "Look at her," he said to Marcus. "She's not just sharing techniques, she's sharing hope." The next morning, as they prepared for their conference presentation, Sarah received news that changed everything. The main demonstration arena had been damaged by the storm. The only available alternative was the outdoor space, complete with unpredictable weather, unfamiliar sounds, and a much larger audience. "We can postpone," Victoria offered, seeing Sarah's concern. "No one would blame you." But Sarah looked at Storm Warning, who stood alert and interested, no longer the frightened creature who once hid from the world. "No," she said firmly, I think this is exactly what we need to show." The outdoor arena was packed when they entered. Storm Warning moved confidently despite the new environment, his trust in Sarah stronger than his fear of the unknown. As Lisa began to play, they started their demonstration not with their polished routine, but with the simple games that had begun their journey. Sarah shared their story as they worked, her voice carrying clearly across the arena. "A year ago, Storm Warning could barely lift his head," she told the audience. "He was afraid of everything, sounds, movements, his own shadow. But he taught me something amazing, that healing doesn't have to look like medicine or therapy. Sometimes it looks like playing with a purple ball. Sometimes it sounds like Spanish guitar. And sometimes it's just about having someone believe in you until you remember how to believe in yourself." As if understanding his cue, Storm Warning demonstrated his transformation. He danced with joy, showing how fear could become grace, how trauma could become triumph. When a sudden gust of wind scattered papers in the stands, he didn't flinch. Instead, he incorporated the sound into his dance, turning startle into style. The audience watched in stunned silence as horse and girl moved together, their partnership, transcending traditional boundaries between species, between teacher and student, between healer and healed. For their finale, they invited Spirit Sky and Rachel to join them. The two horses moved in harmony, the once terrified mare finding her courage through Storm Warning's example. When the music ended, both horses bowed, not from training, but from the pure joy of partnership. The standing ovation lasted for minutes, but the real triumph came afterward, when trainers and therapists from around the world approached to share their own stories of seemingly hopeless cases. "You've given us new tools," one veteran therapist said, wiping tears, "but more importantly, you've given us new hope." That evening, as they prepared for the journey home, Sarah found a note slipped under Storm Warning's stall door. It was from Tommy, the boy who had found his voice through their work. "Dear Storm Warning and Sarah, you showed me that being broken doesn't mean being finished, that being scared doesn't mean being weak. Thank you for teaching me how to be brave again. Love, Tommy." Sarah read the note aloud to Storm Warning, who listened with pricked ears. "You know what, buddy?" she said softly. I think we've discovered something bigger than just healing. We've discovered how to help others find their own kind of magic. Later that night, Sarah made a new entry in her journal. Day 400 with storm warning. Today, we learned that true strength isn't about never being afraid. It's about dancing with your fears until they become part of your strength. And true healing isn't just about getting better, it's about showing others that better is possible. As she wrote, she could hear storm warning and spirit sky nickering softly to each other in their stalls, two souls who had found their way from darkness to light. Outside, the stars emerged from behind the storm clouds, their light a reminder that even the darkest nights could lead to brighter dawns. Their journey had become more than just a story of rehabilitation. It had become a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of unconditional love, and a reminder that within every broken spirit lies the potential for extraordinary grace. For in the end, that was the real miracle of their partnership, not just the healing of one horse and one girl, but the creation of a new kind of medicine, one made of music and movement, of purple balls and patient hearts, of the courage to believe that every ending could become a new beginning. And somewhere, in the quiet of the night, Sarah knew her father was watching, proud of the way his daughter had taken his legacy of hope and transformed it into something even more beautiful. A symphony of healing that would continue to touch lives long after their own dance was done. As spring bloomed in Montana, Storm Warning and Sarah faced their greatest challenge yet. The International Equine Rehabilitation Symposium had invited them to headline their annual event. But this wasn't just any performance. They would be showcasing their methods before the world's leading veterinarians, therapists, and researchers. There's more, Victoria announced during their planning meeting. They want you to work with Phoenix. Sarah's heart skipped. Everyone in the equine therapy world knew about Phoenix, a once legendary show jumper who had suffered a catastrophic breakdown during the World Championships. After his crash, he had retreated so deeply into trauma that even the most experienced handlers couldn't reach him. They've tried everything, Dr. Chen explained, spreading Phoenix's file across the table. Traditional therapy, medication, even experimental treatments. Nothing has worked. Sarah studied the photographs, the magnificent chestnut stallion soaring over impossible heights. Then the same horse now, eyes dull and vacant, spirit seemingly extinguished. "How long do we have?" Sarah asked. 3 weeks before the symposium. Victoria replied, "I know it's not much time." "When does he arrive?" "Tomorrow morning." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She pulled out her father's journal, searching for guidance. Near the back, she found an entry she'd never noticed before. Sometimes, the hardest cases aren't about healing the body. They're about reaching a soul that's lost its way home. Those are the ones that require not just skill, but magic. At dawn, Sarah arrived at the clinic to find Storm Warning already alert, sensing something important was coming. She led him to the outdoor arena, where they had set up their usual equipment, the purple ball, the speakers, the ground poles. But today, they added something new, a mirror. "We need to show Phoenix who he really is," Sarah explained to the gathered team. "Not who he was or what happened to him, but who he could be again." When the trailer arrived, it took 6 handlers to unload Phoenix. The once proud stallion was a shadow of himself, moving like a horse 3 times his age, his eyes never lifted from the ground, his magnificent neck permanently bowed in defeat. Instead of approaching directly, Sarah and Storm Warning began their morning routine at a distance. Lisa played their familiar Spanish melody while Storm Warning danced. With his purple ball, his movements full of joy and freedom, Phoenix's ear twitched, the first voluntary movement he'd made in months. Day after day, they worked in the same space, never forcing interaction, but always inviting it. Storm Warning would play and dance, demonstrating the possibilities of healing through movement. Sometimes he would approach Phoenix, offering gentle nickers of encouragement before returning to his games. A breakthrough came on day 5. During their morning session, a plastic bag blew across the arena. Before Phoenix could panic, Storm Warning caught it with his teeth and began a playful game of toss, transforming a potential trigger into a moment of fun. Phoenix lifted his head, really lifted it for the first time since his accident. "Look," Sarah whispered excitedly. "He's curious." They built on that curiosity. Each day they introduced new games, new movements, new possibilities for joy. Storm Warning became both demonstrator and mentor, showing Phoenix that trust was possible, that play could heal, that dancing could rebuild what trauma had broken. On day 12, Phoenix took his first voluntary step toward the purple ball. The transformation that followed was nothing short of miraculous. With Storm Warning's guidance, Phoenix began to remember not just how to move, but how to feel. His eyes regained their spark. His movements became more fluid, more purposeful. "It's like watching someone wake up from a very long sleep," Marcus observed. But the real test came when they introduced jumping. Not the towering heights of Phoenix's past, but simple ground poles barely 6 inches high. Storm Warning demonstrated, first adding his characteristic flair to each tiny leap. Phoenix watched intently. When invited to try, he approached the pole with uncertain steps. Everyone held their breath as he gathered himself, remembering perhaps the crash that had cost him everything. Then Storm Warning did something extraordinary. He walked to Phoenix's side and jumped the pole with him, matching his movement step for step, offering support through presence alone. Together they cleared the pole, not with Phoenix's former grandeur, but with something perhaps more valuable: courage. By the time the symposium arrived, Phoenix had progressed beyond anyone's wildest expectations. But Sarah had something different planned for their demonstration. "We're not going to show them who Phoenix was," she told the team. "We're going to show them who he is now." The day of the performance, the international audience fell silent as Sarah entered the arena with both horses. Instead of their usual routine, they presented something new, a dance of 3 souls finding their way together. Storm Warning and Phoenix moved in perfect synchronization, their steps matched to Lisa's guitar. They played with the purple ball, jumped small obstacles in tandem, and demonstrated how partnership could transform trauma into triumph. For their finale, Sarah had prepared something special. As the music softened, both horses approached the mirror they had used in training. Standing side by side, they watched their own reflection. Storm Warning proud and confident, Phoenix growing stronger every day. Then, in an unplanned moment that left the audience breathless, Phoenix turned to Storm Warning and touched his nose to his friend's neck. A gesture of profound gratitude that needed no translation. The standing ovation lasted 10 minutes, but the real victory came afterward, when Phoenix's former trainer approached with tears streaming down his face. "I thought he was lost forever," he said, watching Phoenix grazing peacefully with Storm Warning. "But you didn't just help him heal, You helped him find something new to become. That evening, as Sarah prepared both horses for the night, she found Victoria standing at the arena gate. "You've created something revolutionary," Victoria said softly. "Not just a method of rehabilitation, but a whole new way of understanding healing." Sarah smiled, watching Storm Warning and Phoenix share a hay pile. "I think we're all learning together. Every horse, every challenge, every small victory. They're all teaching us something about the power of believing in second chances." Her journal that night, Sarah wrote, Day 425 with Storm Warning. "Today, we learned that sometimes the greatest healing happens when we stop trying to fix what's broken and start building something new instead. Phoenix taught us that it's not about becoming who we were, but discovering who we can be." As she wrote, she could hear both horses nickering softly in their stalls. Storm Warning, the auction rescue who had become a healer, and Phoenix, the fallen champion who had found a new kind of greatness. Their voices joined in a harmony that spoke of resilience, of transformation, and of the endless possibilities that exist when one heart reaches out to help another remember how to soar. For in the end, that was the truest magic of their work. Not just the healing of broken bodies or traumatized minds, but the awakening of spirits who had forgotten how to dream. And in that awakening, they were creating something more powerful than any medal or championship. They were creating hope. Success with Phoenix brought an unexpected wave of new challenges. As summer approached, Riverbend Clinic received a call that would test everything Sarah and Storm Warning had learned about healing. "They're calling it the Harmony Valley Rescue," Dr. Chen explained, spreading photographs across the conference table. 32 horses seized from an abandoned therapy center. Most of them are former service animals, therapy horses, police mounts, even a retired search and rescue horse. Sarah's heart ached as she studied the images. These weren't just any rescue horses. They were animals who had spent their lives helping others, only to be abandoned when the center ran into financial trouble. "The state facility is overwhelmed," Victoria added. "They're asking if we can take the most severe cases, the ones who need specialized rehabilitation." Storm Warning stood at his paddock fence, watching their meeting through the window. Over the past year, he had evolved from patient to healer, helping countless horses find their way back to joy. But this would be different. This would be healing on a scale they had never attempted. "How many?" Sarah asked. 6, Dr. Chen replied. "The ones no other facility feels equipped to handle." That evening, as the transport trailers arrived, Sarah and Storm Warning waited in the arena with their familiar tools. The purple ball, Lisa's guitar, the speakers ready to play their healing music. But nothing could have prepared them for what emerged from those trailers. First came Atlas, a massive Percheron who had served on the police force. Once a symbol of strength and courage, he now moved like a ghost, his powerful body diminished by neglect. Behind him came Luna, a former therapy pony whose gentle spirit had been crushed by abandonment. Orion, the search and rescue veteran, barely resembled the hero who had once saved lives in mountain disasters. Shadow and Echo, twin Morgan horses who had worked with disabled children, were so bonded in their trauma that they couldn't bear to be separated. Last came Starlight, an elderly Arabian who had been the therapy center's cornerstone for 15 years. Her once proud head hung low, her eyes dull with betrayal. Sarah felt overwhelmed by the weight of their collective pain. But then she felt Storm Warning's familiar nudge against her shoulder, his way of saying, "Together." They began that very night. Instead of working with each horse individually, Sarah tried something new. She and Storm Warning invited all 6 horses into the arena at once, creating a space where healing could happen naturally at each animal's own pace. Lisa played softly as Storm Warning demonstrated his signature games. The purple ball rolled and bounced, an invitation to remember play. The music flowed, offering rhythm to bodies that had forgotten how to move with joy. At first, the new arrivals stood like statues, too lost in their trauma to engage. But Storm Warning was patient. He danced near Atlas, showing the police horse that strength could be gentle. He rolled the ball past Luna, reminding the therapy pony that play was still possible. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, something began to shift. Atlas's ears twitched toward the music. Luna took a tentative step toward the ball. The twin Morgans, Shadow and Echo, began to sway slightly with the rhythm. "Look," Dr. Chen whispered to Marcus, "they're remembering." Each day brought small miracles. Atlas discovered he could use his police training to help guide the other horses, finding new purpose in leadership. Luna's natural therapy instincts awakened as she helped calm the more anxious rescues. Orion, the search and rescue horse, revealed an unexpected talent for the Spanish dance steps Storm Warning loved. The twins, Shadow and Echo, learned to play together again, their synchronized movements becoming a dance of healing. But it was Starlight, the elderly Arabian, who taught them the most profound lesson. One morning, as Storm Warning performed his usual routine, she approached him with slow, deliberate steps. Everyone watched in amazement as she began to mirror his movements, adding her own graceful variations. "She's not just copying him," Sarah realized aloud. "She's teaching. She's remembering who she was, a therapy horse who helped others heal." This sparked a new direction in their rehabilitation program. Instead of treating the rescued horses solely as patients, they began incorporating each one's unique skills and experience into the healing process. Atlas became a confidence builder for fearful horses. Luna's gentle nature made her perfect for working with the clinic's youngest visitors. Orion's search and rescue instincts transformed into a remarkable ability to sense when other horses needed support. The twins, Shadow and Echo, developed a special connection with autistic children, their synchronized movements creating a mesmerizing form of dance therapy. And Starlight, the elder statesman of the group, became a mentor to newly arrived rescues. One afternoon, during a particularly powerful session, Victoria turned to Dr. Chen with tears in her eyes. "We've been thinking about healing all wrong," she said. "It's not just about fixing what's broken, it's about helping each soul find its way back to purpose." The transformation of the Harmony Valley rescues attracted attention from therapeutic riding centers worldwide. Professionals came to observe their methods, amazed by how Storm Warning and Sarah had helped these specialized service horses not just recover, but rediscover their calling. "What's your secret?" a visiting therapist asked Sarah one day. Sarah watched as Storm Warning led a group session, each rescue horse contributing their own gifts to the healing dance. "I think," she said thoughtfully, "the secret is remembering that every heart knows its own way home. Sometimes they just need someone to believe in them long enough for them to remember who they really are." As summer deepened, The clinic organized a special demonstration. They invited the police officers who had worked with Atlas, the search and rescue team that had deployed with Orion, and the children who had once known Shadow and Echo as therapy horses. The arena filled with emotion as each horse performed. Not just Storm Warning's healing exercises, but demonstrations of their renewed purpose. Atlas stood proud in his police training patterns. Orion showed his restored search skills through intricate tracking games. The twins danced with their former students, their movements full of joy and connection. But the most powerful moment came when Starlight stepped forward. The elderly Arabian, who had seemed beyond hope just months ago, now moved with the grace and wisdom of her years. She demonstrated the gentle techniques she had used with thousands of therapy students, showing that her gift for healing had never truly been lost. That evening, as the sun set over the Montana mountains, Sarah made a new entry in her journal. Day 450 with Storm Warning. Today we learned that healing isn't just about getting better. It's about remembering your purpose. Every one of these horses had a calling, a way of making the world better. In helping them heal, we didn't just restore their health. We helped them find their way back to their life's work. She watched through her window as Storm Warning moved among his new friends in the paddock. The once broken auction horse had become more than a success story. He had become a guide, showing other wounded spirits the path back to purpose. For in the end, that was the deepest magic of their work. Not just the healing of bodies or the calming of fears, but the restoration of purpose. Every rescued horse had a unique gift to offer, a special way of helping others heal. In remembering this, they had discovered something profound about the nature of healing itself, that sometimes the greatest recovery comes not from being fixed, but from being reminded of all the ways you can still help make the world a little bit better. And in this discovery, they had created something beautiful, a symphony of healing, where every heart, no matter how wounded, could find its way back to the dance of life, purpose, and joy. The story reached its pinnacle 1 year to the day after Sarah first saw Storm Warning at the auction. The Montana State Fair had invited them to perform a grand finale demonstration that would showcase not just their journey, but the transformative power of their healing program. The fairgrounds buzzed with anticipation as Sarah prepared for their most ambitious presentation yet. Storm Warning stood calmly in the warm-up area, his coat gleaming like polished copper in the morning sun. Around them, their extended family of healed horses waited, Phoenix, the Harmony Valley Rescues, and dozens of others whose lives they had touched. "Are you ready to show them everything we've learned?" Sarah whispered, stroking Storm Warning's neck. He answered with a gentle nicker, touching his nose to the pocket where she kept his favorite peppermint. The main arena had been transformed. Instead of traditional show rings or competition courses, they had created something entirely new, a space that told the story of healing through different zones. Each area represented a stage of their journey, from trauma to triumph. As the stands filled, Sarah heard familiar voices. Tommy, the boy who had found his voice through their program, was there with his family. Maria, Alex, and other children they had helped sat in the front row. Even Jim Miller, Storm Warning's former owner, had come to witness the transformation. The demonstration began not with fanfare, but with silence. Storm Warning entered the arena alone, moving to the spot where they had placed his old auction photo. The image showed him as he had been, broken, defeated, seemingly beyond hope. The contrast with the proud, confident horse before the crowd took their breath away. Then, one by one, the other horses joined him. Phoenix, once a fallen champion, now moved with renewed grace. Atlas, the police horse, carried himself with restored dignity. Luna, Shadow, Echo, Orion, and Starlight, each one a testament to the power of second chances. Lisa's guitar began to play, joined by a full orchestra they had invited for this special day. The music told their story, beginning with the haunting notes of trauma and fear, gradually building into a symphony of hope and healing. The horses moved in perfect harmony, each demonstrating their unique journey. Storm warning led them through the stages of rehabilitation they had discovered together, the play therapy with purple balls, the trust-building exercises, the dance steps that had helped them remember joy. But the most powerful moment came when they invited the children to join them. Tommy ran to Storm Warning's side, no longer silent, but laughing with pure joy. Maria, once paralyzed by anxiety, danced confidently with Phoenix. Alex, who had struggled to connect, moved in perfect synchronization with the twin therapy horses. The arena fell silent as Sarah stepped forward to address the crowd. "A year ago," she began, her voice clear and strong, "someone asked me why I wanted to save a broken-down horse. I didn't have the words then to explain what I saw in Storm Warning's eyes. But now I know. I saw a reflection of every heart that has ever been told. It was too broken to heal, too damaged to dance, too far gone to find its way home." She gestured to the gathered horses and children. "What we've learned isn't just about rehabilitation. It's about remembering that inside every wounded spirit lives a dancer waiting to soar. Every one of these horses, every child they've helped, every life they've touched, they're all proof that healing isn't about becoming who you were before. It's about discovering who you were always meant to be." The finale brought tears to every eye. All the horses, led by Storm Warning, performed a synchronized dance that combined elements of their individual stories. The music swelled as they moved together. Police horse and show jumper, therapy pony and search rescuer, each one adding their unique grace to the whole. For their closing movement, Storm Warning broke from the group and approached the center of the arena. There, spotlighted in the afternoon sun, he performed the passage steps that had first revealed his hidden talents. But now they were stronger, more refined, performed not from training, but from pure joy. The standing ovation lasted for minutes. As the applause finally faded, Victoria stepped forward with an announcement that would change everything. "What we've witnessed here today isn't just a demonstration, it's a revolution in how we think about healing." The state of Montana has officially approved funding for the establishment of the Storm Warning Center for Innovative Healing, a facility dedicated to combining music, movement, and trust building to help both animals and humans find their way back to joy. Sarah's eyes filled with tears as Victoria continued. But more than that, this center will serve as a training ground for a new generation of healers. Because what Sarah and Storm Warning have shown us is that sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't medicine at all. It's the courage to believe, the willingness to play, and the determination to keep dancing, even when the path ahead seems impossible. That evening, as the sun set behind the Montana mountains, Sarah sat in Storm Warning's stall, making her final journal entry of their first year together. Around them, the other horses dozed peacefully, their spirits finally at rest. Day 365 with storm warning, she wrote. Today we learned that the greatest journeys don't end, they become beginnings for others. Every life we've touched, every heart we've helped heal, they're all part of a bigger dance now. And maybe that's what healing really means, not just getting better, but becoming part of something larger than ourselves. She looked up at Storm Warning, who stood watching her with gentle eyes. You know what, buddy? Daddy was right. Every horse does have a song in their heart. But what he didn't tell me is that sometimes that song becomes a symphony, one that keeps playing long after the dance is done. As if in answer, Storm Warning lifted his head and let out a clear, strong neigh, a sound of triumph, of joy, of life fully embraced. Outside, the other horses answered, their voices joining in a chorus of hope that echoed across the valley. For in the end, their story had become more than just a tale of rehabilitation. It had become a testament to the power of unconditional love. A reminder that within every broken spirit lies the potential for extraordinary grace, and a promise that no heart is ever too wounded to heal, no soul too lost to find its way home. And somewhere, Sarah knew her father was watching, proud of how his daughter had taken his legacy of hope and transformed it into something even more beautiful. A symphony of healing that would continue to touch lives long after their own dance was done. "Ready for our next chapter?" she asked Storm Warning, who nudged her shoulder gently. Together they stepped out into the gathering dusk, ready to begin another year of miracles, one purple ball and one Spanish guitar note at a time. For the dance of healing never truly ends. It just grows larger, stronger, more beautiful with each new heart that joins its endless song.